Last year we seized 142 clan labs in Victoria. That was up 42 labs from the previous year. The chemicals used are highly toxic, and particularly if they're cooking in confined spaces or at a home.
Crystal methamphetamine is the #1 drug of choice for the young in Australia today. Known as ice, it is so powerful it takes just one hit for users to become addicted. Today, authorities are warning of what they call an ice epidemic.
Police, open the door!
We're seeing some real increases in violent crime and even murders or homicide from people that are addicted to or under the influence of ice.
Rising crime rates are the tip of the iceberg. Major drug producers the world over see Australia as a lucrative market, where 1 gram of ice has a street value of $1,000 and is good for 10 hits. But the real cost, countless families destroyed every day.
It took away my ability to love my own children. I have no doubt that I would turn my back on my family again.
Now you build tolerance, so you need more and more methamphetamine each time you take it, and so you need increasing doses to get the euphoria. They can cause heart attacks, they can cause bleeding in the brain, they can cause strokes. Some people die just because they get such a high body temperature that they can't cope with. Methamphetamines have effects on some areas of the brain that control movement, and they produce what we call stereotypical effects, which means that the movement is repetitive. The picking of the skin, the grinding of the teeth, which is known as bruxism. Sometimes they can have thoughts of harming others or harming themselves. Sometimes they have seizures. They can be confused.
Totally in another world. I couldn't get through to him. Almost violent to me a couple of times, you know, like where he punched a few walls and we had serious arguments.
Former Australian boxer Barry Michael never expected his toughest fight to come long after his retirement. But in a 2-year battle against his son's meth addiction, the former super featherweight world champion felt like he had to punch way above his weight. With his son Zach twice arrested for ice possession, Barry was on the ropes until a few months ago.
The penny dropped with him after one of his very good friends committed suicide, and he saw the change in so many people. At the start it was a party drug. They'd go out and in the end they'd just go to each other's houses just to do it, and they'd be doing it continually, and you'd find yourself up for, you know, a week at a time without virtually any sleep, and then you're absolutely exhausted.
Today, Barry is keeping Zach on the straight and narrow the best way he knows how. He wants to see his once athletic son become fighting fit again.
A lot of the time it's just more of a mental battle with yourself.
25-year-old Zach has been clean for 6 months and dropped 10 kilos.
You're puffing, you're tired, or you know, you want to give up, but you keep pushing through.
He's talking not just about his training regime, but also his drug recovery. Getting arrested, he says, was no help.
They kind of, you know, expect you to go out and change your ways the moment you walk out of the police station, which is, you know, completely ludicrous. First thing I did was, you know, call up my mates and go back and meet up with them, and I was smoking again, you know, half an hour later. There should be some sort of, you know, testing strategy implemented the moment you leave the police station, so that you are forced to be clean, because a lot of people don't actually have the strength to do it themselves. But if you're forced to have, you know, 2 drug tests a week,
Finish with a hook and roll out.
give them that for 6 months. That's going to help stop people from reoffending. It's more of my generation's kind of epidemic. Like anyone my age or a few years below me, everyone's pretty much using it these days. It's just that socially accepted.
The social acceptance fuels a lucrative market for an underground trade. Zach became a part of it, spending $1,000 a week on ice.
You're talking about the huge criminal underworld, like, you know, the sort of stuff you see in movies, like kidnappings, murders, you know, all sorts of stuff, like holding people hostage. They got people, you know, like cooking this stuff for them, like, you know, against their will.
With 1,500 members, the Rebels is Australia's largest outlaw motorcycle gang, operating in every state and territory.
Australian news reports show rising concern over outlaw bikie gangs flooding the country with drugs. In the depths of despair, Tom is reaching out to his parents for help. He hasn't been home for a year after his father kicked him out for stealing from them to pay his drug debts. I meet his mother, we'll call her Ginny. She's heartbroken by how ICE has destroyed her family, leaving her caught between her husband and son.
Because I was protecting my son and my husband didn't understand it. I didn't either, but I had to be there for him. He had no one else. I have to keep it all together. If I fall down, everyone will fall down, so I have to be strong.
Realizing she couldn't do it alone, Ginny wrote to a social worker.
Hi Les, my son is 19 years old and my husband and I adopted him and his brother. He was 3.5 when he came to us and was an adorable child whom I loved to death. As he was reaching his teens, my husband and...
She's writing to Les Twentyman, who has more than 30 years' experience working with troubled youth. They arranged to meet.
It was heroin, you know, but now it's methamphetamine. And the sad thing about it is that it's filling our prisons up, you know. I mean, I had a petrol bomb thrown at me 2 years ago. Well,
Les and Ginny agree Tom urgently needs to move out of the house he shares with other meth users. Ginny is trying to find her son other accommodation. Until then, she has to persuade her husband to let Tom move back home. But given their rocky relationship, she doesn't know if he'll say yes.
The thing with meth is it's been sort of peddled to the young people that it's going to improve their energy levels, their sexual ability and all sorts of stuff.
Les Twentyman believes young people like Tom could have been stopped from turning to ICE. He wants the government to dedicate more resources to put youth workers in schools.
The evidence we've got is that kids who have fractured educations or early exiting education are the ones that are more likely to fall into the path of drugs. If you haven't got a youth worker to make that contact with the kid in the first place, how's that kid going to access all those programs and projects?
His organisation, 20th Men Fund, runs a successful basketball program for vulnerable kids, keeping them off the streets and high on sport.
We've got coaches here off the rails when they're 15, now they're 23 and they're at university and they're working part-time for our fund. You know, that's where you see the successes. Children I know have been in families where there's been ice-addicted parents, suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder because of the violence, because of the irregularity of their life. And what we try to do in substituting is to have them involved in a range of sporting and recreation and drama activities that fill that isolation out, or pack it up and get some disciplines and structures into their life. These kids are very much at risk of falling into the clutches of drug cartels.
A few days later, I received good news. Tom's father has agreed to let him come home after meeting him for the first time in a year. We find Tom packing up, preparing to leave this toxic environment behind. His housemates let us film in his room, on the condition that we don't identify the house.
Quite nervous and daunting, just to face housemates and all that sort of thing.
Why are you feeling nervous and daunting?
The confrontation between me and my housemates, whether they're going to cause trouble or not.
And you haven't been home for a year, so how's that going to be like?
Yeah, that's another daunting one between me and my dad. Me and Dad used to always fight, so now that I'm more on the good side and clean side, it's It's good, whereas me and Dad are starting to talk, get along again. It's just a mess. Yeah, total mess.
It's good to clean up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exciting.
In the depths of Australia's ice crisis, we uncover elements of hope. Today is a special day for one family ripped apart by ice. Tom is home for the first time in a year and begins a long road to recovery.
So it's a celebration and it's a new start to his life. Because my son's moved out of a home that was a bad place and he's moving back in with my husband and I, start fresh.
Every broken family that starts afresh has a daily battle to fight. As the drug spreads from cities to rural towns, Australia needs to overcome this ice age before it's too late.